Hi everyone, welcome to this video. So this is not my usual kind of video where I'm talking about science or doing some tutorials. So this is just a way of actually explaining the experience that I had, and I had a wonderful time the last couple of days. I am actually far away from my home, almost 700 kilometer away, and I came here for actually giving a seminar. I won't talk about the topic because like, that's probably I would probably talk it some other day. So this is just completely unscripted. This is something completely random. I thought about. I would just talk about what I have experienced over here. So apart from actually giving the seminar, uh, what I was what I actually more enjoyed was an interaction session with postgraduate students. So I gave a seminar, and then I was asked to basically take a class for a master student on applications of AI. So Uh, I probably you don't know, but I am not used to taking classes. But as a student, because I have been a student not that long ago, and as a student, I have felt a lot of times that our education system, and by our I means Indian education system, at least where which I have gone through, it's not perfect. Probably just like all other systems, it's not a perfect system. It has its own pros, cons, it has its own benefits, its own difficulties. And I have been fortunate enough to go to some places, some really brilliant places where I have got to see a wide variety of approaches to teaching. I have been to places where there's no defined syllabus, there's no defined exam, where whatever the teacher has basically spoken about, that's the syllabus. And it has its own pros and cons. So during my undergraduate years and postgraduate years, there were a lot less boundaries in terms of syllabus, in terms of the scope of how much we have to basically go through in a particular semester. And it was great. It was something different from what my other friends were doing, where they have a very defined syllabus. They know, like, okay, this is what usually comes in like every 5 years or so. So these questions that you have to memorize and stuff like that. So it was very different from what my friends were doing, friends in other systems or other universities were doing, and I was doing something completely different. In our exams, we were told to just take our books. Not all exams, but in some of our exams, they were open book exams. I didn't even know there's something like that exist, because just from the childhood we always thought, okay, exam means like we have to memorize, we have to prepare, because exam is basically to write down everything that you know in a very limited amount of time. Though the time crunch, the time constraint still remained in my university, but regarding memorizing things actually went down a lot, because in most of the subjects we can take books with us, we can take notes with us. It was up to us. So it was a different kind of system that I went through, and it was good, obviously. At least it felt good, while I came from a system where memorizing content were given a lot of priority. I come from a system where there are a lot of competitive exams, and obviously there are reasons of that kind of a competitive exams, because you need some way of filtering students among a very large batch. And India is a very large country with a lots of students appearing for every kinds of things. So obviously there's a lot of need for all such type of exams. But what these competitive exams have done is, it has created it has basically morphed the education system in such a way that people are more inclined towards just memorizing things instead of actually understanding the concept. And you have basically seen this enough. you have probably seen this discussion enough, and I am not the only one, or I am not the first one to talk about this. But somehow, with all this stuff, we have actually kind of left the curiosity part of learning, right? Because at the end, learning is all about learning should be the only thing that we should be focusing on, right? It shouldn't be like getting into jobs and stuff like that. I understand that probably is a very idealistic view that wouldn't exist in real world, but the problem is that in real world it's not like an exam, right? Exam give you stress, exam give you a lot of stuff, exam actually teaches you a lot of stuff as well. So I am not against exams, I am not against the current competitive exams or anything like that. It's also a phase that people, I think, should go through so that they can experience different things. But the end of the day, what I feel is we are making it a lot more constrained for learning. So the learning environment should be as free as possible. Learning, because when you actually bound the path of learning, it actually bounds the curiosity as well. So questioning the system, questioning the teachers, because this is something that I have seen a lot. One directional way of teaching. Even I have faced it, and even when I was talking to the students today, they were also expecting it one directional. Like I would be just giving them just a talk, I would be doing a monologue, and they would be just listening. There's no bidirectional communication. They do not expect a conversation to happen, but learning is all about conversation, communication. And communication happens both ways. Usually it's not just the students that learn something out of a lesson, it's the teachers as well. Teachers learn a lot about something that they have probably not thought before. So obviously there are many layers to it. It's not as simple as I am making it out to be, but in the process of basically making it more constrained, and I understand the need for constraint as well, we have somehow left, or we have probably somehow made a lot of boundaries, lot of barriers to the path of learning. And it has created a system where people are not like very susceptible to the idea of asking questions, at least in India. So most of what I am talking about is Indian education system, where I belong from. So people are not very used to asking questions. They are used to taking things at a face value. So if they're waiting for someone to tell them, okay, this is what it should be, and they believe that, and they follow that, they abide by those things. And while that may be correct in some places, but in most cases, you shouldn't take something at a face value. That's what I have learned through my whatever I have basically gone through the education system, and as a journey towards in science, as a science student, and like as people say, like we are learner for like forever. It's not it doesn't end at just a completion of a degree. It always continues, right? And so we all are learners. We are learners forever, and we are learning every day. And if I start taking things at face value, if I start taking things without asking any questions, it just means that I am probably not thinking too deeply. That's what I think. It might be wrong, but I encourage, like if I am talking to anyone, and mostly, fortunately or unfortunately, most of my conversations now happens towards people whom I want to teach something. Whenever I do this conversation, I always tell them that don't take my words at a face value. Don't just take my words. Go and check for it, because now I think we are now living in a wonderful era where everyone, almost everyone, at least people who are looking at this video now, or would look at this video later on, they all have access to internet, and internet means information, access to information. You have the means to actually do some research at every point, at every juncture of your life. You have the option to do research, to analyze, to okay, this is what I'm getting. First of all, obviously, it might not be important enough for you to spend time on. That's a different issue. But if you think like, okay, this is something that might be interesting, do not take just someone's word for it. This is what the learning process should be. It's a two-way process, always a two-way process. It's not just someone would come and tell you something and you just understand, okay, okay, that's all. Don't do that. Don't take anyone's word. Don't take anyone's advice just at a face value. Ask them questions. And I know like it doesn't come very intuitively, it doesn't come naturally to probably Indian students, because they're not very acquainted with this kind of setting. But the problem is, if you don't ask questions, first of all, a lot of things remain unanswered, and you are probably learning, like you are probably partially learning, you are not actually learning the thing properly. And this particular attitude towards learning itself, it will itself give you immense help in the future. So just one point before I end this. Again, it's also a monologue, and I hate this kind of monologue, but we had no choice. We can't do an interaction. But so just one point before I basically put up this video. So some people stayed back after the class. Some students stayed back, and they were basically asking me different questions. And one of the question which kind of got repeated by multiple people were how they can learn AI. So I was taking a class on AI, artificial intelligence, and people were asking, okay, we do not have enough resources, or we do not have enough professors who know AI, stuff like that. So they were asking like, okay, how did you learn? Because okay, you had a different kind of a background. How did you basically come to this background? How did you learn? How can we learn AI? The thing that I obviously answered them, and I'm not answering them now. That's a completely different topic from what I'm discussing now. But the thing that actually like saddened me is that they are waiting for someone to basically tell them. They're waiting for someone to teach them. You might say that what's wrong with it? The thing is, learning, as I said, learning is always is should be two ways, but at the same time, the one that wants to learn, the learner, they have to keep their mind open, and they have to dig their own trenches. Like if you want to go somewhere, you have to start working. That place won't come near to you, right? So the lack of effort from their end, like they're expecting someone would just come and tell them, okay, this is the book that you, if you read this book, then all your problems will be solved. Or like this teacher in this semester would basically teach you on AI, and once you basically take his or her class, then okay, you will be an AI specialist. So people are expecting that one directional way, and that's what basically saddened me. And uh, that's what I was thinking when I returned, and I thought, okay, let me discuss that. So it's just an open-ended discussion. It's not like I am basically taking sides. I am not saying, okay, this is right, this is wrong. This is just what my feelings are, my opinions are about how learning should be, uh, how the education system should be, so that it encourages learning. Because at the end of the day, that's the goal of that's the supposed goal of uh, education system, right? To encourage learning. Because most of what we do in our initial years, they won't even be useful, they won't be even necessary. But what it does is it's basically creates a habit of learning. I feel that like it's basically to prepare you to learn new things when you go into the adulthood, when you go into the real world. So if it can't do it well, then probably the education system is not doing its job, right? Just think about it. That's all. Okay. Bye bye. Hope this kind of discussion encourage you to think more. That's all I would gonna say. Bye bye. Stay safe.